We're going to factor trinomials where the coefficient of the squared term is equal to 1. That means it'll be looking like x squared plus some number times x plus some number that doesn't have an x with it. An example would be x squared plus 9x plus 20. That's going to be equal to two binomials, because you get this result when you multiply these binomials, which you already know how to do. You can do it by using the FOIL method or just multiplying one to the other and so on. In fact, we'll do that when we check it. So I'm going to go down figuring out. That means where I want to go is I want to get to something like this. I know already that the first terms will be x's because this is x squared. The only way you can get x squared is to do x times x. So we know that to get this has to be an x and that has to be an x. So that means it must be an x here and it must be an x here. Now, to figure out what the correct numbers are that are here, we have to recognize how we get these two numbers. So this number 20 is the result of multiplying these two numbers. So what we want to do is take a look at that number, and we want to figure out what are the factors that make that up. So what we're going to do is 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5, and I don't think there are any others that multiply to make 20 that are all integers. We're not talking decimals or fractions here. We need that because we know that these two numbers here are going to multiply. Let's make that look really like a U. There. Multiply to make C, which is the 20. But we also know that at the same time that those two numbers are going to multiply to make this C, because remember that's the B and that's the C and the A is 1, following that pattern. We know these will, so one of these has to multiply to 20, and all three of them do. So we have three possibilities, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. But these two numbers have to do a second thing. That's the first thing that they have to do, but the second thing they have to do is that they have to add to make the B, which in this case is the number 9. Well, when we look now at these three, 1 plus 20 or 2 plus 10 don't work, but 4 plus 5 do add up to be 9. So that means that this should be, it should be x plus a 4 and x plus a 5, and it doesn't matter which one's first. I could have done x plus 5 and then x plus 4 because this is multiplying. Now, having done that, we should check it, and these are really pretty easy now to do checking. You check them by simply multiplying it out. So let's do x plus 4 and x plus 5, and now do x times x, which is x squared, and then the x times the 5, which is 5x. Now we use the 4 on both of these. 4 times x and 4 times 5, and that's going to give us the 20. These two terms are like terms. That means I can add them together. And this happens to be the same thing that we started with. So that proves that x plus 4 times x plus 5 is the factored form of that trinomial. Now, a quick reminder. Notice I did not say like 9x or one of these plus those to say 10x. Some people tend to forget that a squared variable is not the same as a variable that's not squared. So these two are unlike terms. Do not add them together. The adding is once you find out what x is and multiply it here and square it here, then you could add them together. But you can't do that until you know what the x is. So this is all we can do now after multiplying them out. So be careful not to make the mistake of combining unlike terms. So up here we can put the correct final answer as x plus 5 and x plus 4, and I'll circle that. Notice I was very careful here to switch these. simply to prove to you that it's okay to switch them because it doesn't matter. When you multiply them, it's like multiplying 2 times 3 equals 6. If you flip it and make it 3 times 2, that's also equal to 6. So therefore, flipping those doesn't matter, just making sure that it would come out to the same result if you checked it. Now, this is an example where both of these terms are positive. What we're now going to look at is an example where one of them is negative. We're going to do the same type of thing, though. We're going to figure out what two numbers or what two binomials will multiply or will be the factored form of this, that when we multiply these, we would get that. So that means we have to have x's here because x times x makes x squared. But that means these two numbers will multiply to that and will add to that. So what we need to do is put negative 10 here. And now we're going to find all of the things that multiply to make negative 10. Well, one of them, of course, is 1 and 10 if one of the things is negative. And then 1 and 10 if the other one is negative. Then we can do 2 and 5, but one of them has to be negative. And this one where it's this. Now what I'm going to do is show a technique where we'll add to 9. Well, 10 minus 1, that's 9. If we do negative 10 plus 1, we get a negative 9. 5 minus 2 is 3. 2 take away 5 is negative 3. So that means that this combination right at the beginning is the one we want to use. All of the others do not add up to this. But a negative times a positive will make a negative number. So I can do x minus 1 and x plus 10. Now, having done that, I'm going to check it out. I'm going to check it by doing x times x makes x squared. X times 10 is plus 10x. Minus 1 times x is negative x, and minus 1 times 10 is negative 10. Combining the like terms gives me x squared plus 9x minus 10, and that is it. So that means the correct answer is indeed x plus 10 and x minus 1. So this example shows that you can deal with negatives. You just have to place the negative with each possible number, making sure they still multiply to the c and they still add up to the b. Let's do this here now where this number is negative. So what we have to realize is that this one's positive and that one's negative, so we have to do some subtracting. So one of the numbers has to be negative, but if we're going to have a positive, then it looks like both of them will have to be negative, because you can't get a positive unless you are multiplying two positive numbers or two negative numbers. Alright, so let's do the same procedure though. I'm going to put the number 20 here for multiplying and then adding to the number negative 9. So to make 20, I can do 1 and 20. I can do 2 and 10. I can do 4 and 5. But in order to get this to be a negative, right now if I add them up, I might get a positive 9 here, but it's not negative. But if this is negative and negative, I would still get a positive 20. So I'd add them to get a negative 21. No help. If these are both negatives, I get negative 12. Still not right. But if these are both negatives, they add up to a negative 9. And therefore, negative 4 and negative 5 are the two numbers that will multiply to 20 and add up to a negative 9. So I can now do x minus 4 and x minus 5. So now I will check it. X times x is x squared. That's minus 5x minus 4x plus 20. These two terms combine up to make that. Therefore, my answer is indeed x minus 4 and x minus 5. Or x minus 5 times x minus 4. Now we have a case where both of these are negative. That doesn't change our procedure in any way at all. Negative 10, so that's the C, and the B is a negative 9. So I'm going to say, let's see, 2 times 5, well, that's if the negative is 2. 2 times negative 5, those would multiply to negative 10. But this one here, 5 minus 2 is 3. This one's negative 3. Okay, so now I'll do 1 and 10. And negative 1 plus 10 is a positive 9. Here, though, if I do 1 and negative 10, I get a negative 9. So that would give me the negative 9, and it would give me the negative 10. So these are the ones I'll use. So I'm going to do x plus 1 and x minus 10. Now, x times x, x squared, minus 10x plus x minus 10, x squared minus 9x minus 10. There we are. So the answer is x minus 10 and x plus 1. Now, in each of these cases, you've seen that there's different negatives in different places. It doesn't change the procedure of finding the factors of the c and then figuring out which combination will add up to the b. And then those are the numbers in the parentheses as the binomials. Here are two problems to practice. Take a look at them for a few moments. Stop the video temporarily and go and do them, and then come back. And as far as the video goes, in about 5 seconds, I will come back and start talking again and show them. Go ahead and stop it now. All right, those of you who had stopped it in order to do them yourself and see them, now let's work on them. So I'm going to do the same procedure here. I know that I need x and x, and then I need to multiply for the c to be negative 20 and the b to be a negative 1. So if it's a negative x, that means there's always a 1 in front of all of these, and that means it must be a negative 1. Okay, so the numbers that make up negative 20 would be a, well, I was going to say a negative, a negative 1 and 20 would multiply to make that. A 1 and negative 20 would multiply to make it. A 2, a negative 2 and a 10, a 2 and a negative 10, a negative 4 and a 5, and a 4 and a negative 5. So that makes 19. That makes negative 19. That makes 8. That's negative 8. That's positive 1, and that's negative 1. This one fits the two requirements of multiplying to make the negative 20, adding to make the negative 1. So that means in this case I would do the x plus 4 and the x minus 5, and then I'll multiply them. X times x is x squared minus 5x plus 4x minus 20 gives me x squared minus x minus 20. So therefore x minus 5 and x plus 4 are the correct answer. And again, either one of them can come first as long as the x minus 5 and the x plus 4 is there in whichever order. Now the other one. Right, so my c is negative, I'll do it this way now, negative 16, and my b is a negative 6. So to make up negative 16, I can have 16 and 1, but one of them has to be negative, or 16 and negative 1. I can have 4 and 4, but one of them has to be negative, and it doesn't really matter. I don't need to write a second time because they're the same ones. And then I can have a 2 and an 8, but one of them has to be negative, 2 and negative 8. So that's negative 15. That one's 15. That would be 0. So if that were true, that means there wouldn't be anything in here. 8 minus 2 is 6, and negative 8 plus 2 is a negative 6, or 2 take away 8. So it looks like this combination will multiply to make that one and add to make that one. So that means I can do x plus 2 and x minus 8. Now I'm going to check it. X times x is x squared minus 8x plus 2x minus 16. X squared minus 6x minus 16 looks good. So it looks like x plus 2 and x minus 8 is the correct answer. So there is both of them.